Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me as we break down the following standard. Today's standard is MA.3.FR.1.2. And the standard says to represent, that means to show, and interpret, that means saying, like, if I see 2/3, I know that it's 1/3 plus 1/3. Interpreting fractions, including fractions greater than 1, which would be like 4/3, where the numerator is greater than the denominator, in the form of mn as a result of adding the unit fractions of 1n to itself m times. So m being the numerator. For instance, if we had 9/8, that is a fraction that's greater than 1 in this case, and it can be represented as the sum of unit fractions. That would be 1/8 plus 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 1/8. That would be 9 times because we have 9/8. Adding 1/8 9 times. Notice up here that I put a little note that I don't think that mixed numbers are included, but if you see anything on this for this particular standard, send it my way because I would love to update that there. All right, by the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is not something that I created. This is something that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public. And in these Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episodes, I'm just showing you how I take what they provide in order to create the resources that are available to you in your Taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So we'll spend half of the video breaking down the standard, and the other half I'll show you the resources that are aligned to this one. Cool? All right, let's keep going. So benchmark clarifications, we need to make sure that we are using manipulatives and visual models, including circle graphs to represent fractions, okay? Also, our denominators are limited to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Try to keep those denominators inside of those limitations. So what is horizontally aligned this year in 3rd grade? Well, we have the standard right before this one, which was representing unit fractions. We talked all about representing unit fractions, and now we are applying that unit fraction and adding that unit fraction over and over and over again to equal a fraction. In 3.FR.1.3, the focus there is to read and write fractions properly. 3.FR.2.1 is all about plotting, ordering, and comparing fractions. And finally, 3.FR.2.2, that is the equivalent fractions standard. We need to know the number line, apparently, and that kind of looks like this. We do a lot of work on the number line with fractions and with a lot of the standards for the B.E.S.T standards. Vertical alignment, where are they coming from in 2nd grade? Well, in 2nd grade, 2.FR.1.1 was partitioning circles and rectangles into equal parts, and 2.FR.1.2 was partitioning rectangles 2 different ways. So they have had some exposure with partitioning shapes. Now we're taking that up a notch. This year we are decomposing fractions as a sum of unit fractions, but next year we will not keep it to just unit fractions. We'll, like for instance, 6/4 could be 3/4 plus 2/4 plus 1/4. So that would be a 4th grade standard there. So you can see how this one is the step before in 3rd grade. And then 4.FR.2.2 is where we're adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. All right. Purpose and instructional strategies. Let's see what jumped out at me to help us navigate this standard. So the whole purpose of this benchmark is for students to think conceptually about fractions as they plot, order, and compare and determine equivalence in 3rd grade. So we're not doing all of that inside of this standard right here, but it will help us to navigate the plotting, the ordering, and comparing, and finding the equivalent fractions later on. Make sure that you are incorporating manipulatives if you had them, and we will focus a lot on visual area models, number lines, etc. inside of the Taking on the Best videos and extra practice. We need to make sure that our number lines extend beyond 1 because students are going to represent fractions that are greater than 1. And I made a little note here that at first this can be challenging for students, so spend some time going over. They tend to get it between 0 and 1, but as soon as we cross over into a fraction that's greater than 1, it can be a little bit confusing, and it takes a little bit of time for them to get acclimated to that. This is just saying here that in FR.1.1, the standard right before this one, we were learning about how unit fractions are the foundation for all fractions, and then we're stepping it up with this standard as we decompose the sum of unit fractions. Decompose as the sum of unit fractions. And again, fractions are numbers. This is great because students, I know when I was a student, I didn't know that fractions were really numbers. I know that they were made up of numbers, but I didn't understand that they had value, that they were relative to something. I thought we just did a lot of tricks with them and it made it complicated, but fractions can be really fun. There's a lot of manipulatives, there's a lot of visuals involved with fractions, so make sure you're teaching that way. And this will be great for later grades because it will allow us to reason. They're saying that 2/3 plus 2/3 equals 4/3, which would be a 4th grade standard, but it can also help us to say that 4/3 is 3/3 plus 1/3, and that 3/3 is equivalent to 1 whole. Which again is why I don't think that they're targeting a mixed number with this standard, even though we will get into that. Looking at this common misconceptions, I agree here that just fractions equal to and greater than 1 can trip them up. They tend to think it's hard for them to understand what's going on. So lots and lots of visual models are critical here. And here are some instructional items. So you can see the standard in action. This one says represent the fraction 8/3 as a sum. Means we're adding of unit fractions. And then here, same kind of thing with 7/4. And we have to be thinking about why might someone choose an example like B? Why might they choose another example? Have conversations with this. And this is why I've embedded math misconception mystery into this silver plan that we'll get to, because this really highlights errors that students will make and it presents it in a fun way for them to analyze those errors. So let's go ahead and talk about what you have access to. We've gone over the standard. Now let's see what you have access to that will be strategically aligned to this standard and you're Taking on the Best membership. So here we are at the website. We're going to go to members, enter here, select Taking on the Best. Which grade? 3rd grade. We are on the fraction strand and we're on 3.FR.1.2. Open that up. Your first page that you will open up to is your bronze resources. These are the video lessons and student guides. So you can see you have 2 video lessons here representing fractions as a sum of fractions. The first video lesson is representing fractions as a sum of unit fractions. And you can see in this one, we're focusing on fractions that are equal to or less than 1 whole. Breaking that down. We will also be including a visual model. If I can skip to part of it just so you can see. Okay, there we go. All right, so really so you can see here, this is number 2 for instance, and we're breaking this down. We're showing how 5/5 equals 1 whole, how it's broken down into the sum of unit fractions, and then right here we'll do it on the number line. So the video lessons mirror the page that the students have printed out. It's nice like that, breaking it down. So students will watch the video and they'll pause it, whenever they need to go ahead and take their notes, press play, keep rocking and rolling. And then this one is the sum of unit fractions, and you can see here that it's fractions that are greater than 1. So if we click on it, I'm just going to kind of click somewhere in the middle. Let's see what we get.
6/5.
Okay, so here we have 10/5. We're breaking it down as the sum of unit fractions. Over here, we have an area model and then a number line. Breaking it down how you can model this on a number line. And you can see students will have to create those number lines. So that's awesome there. Okay, so your bronze is all about the video lesson and the student guides, video lesson and your notes. Now, after the video, of course, we want to make sure that students can do it on their own. So that's why if you have the silver package or the gold package, you can go to your silver resources. Click on printables, and this will give you all the printables that you have available in the bronze and the silver plan. So here we have the video lesson, and then next we'll have the extra practice for that video lesson. You can see it says extra practice, and they're all less than or equal to 1. And then we have that second video lesson that goes right along with those bronze lessons, and extra practice with fractions that are greater than 1. Then we have a math mission here. It says how many 1/6 pieces would you need to create one whole? Prove your thinking using an area model and a number line. So these are like math tasks. They have different parts and they try to encompass as much of the standard as we can. Part 2, how many 1/6 pieces would you need to create 3 wholes? Prove your thinking using an area model and a number line. And write 11/6 as a sum of unit fractions. So there is an answer key for this as well. And then finally, we have the math misconception mystery episode. That's right here. You just click play and I will guide your students through the entire process. And just so you know, once you press play and you activate one of these video lessons for your students, there's no turning back. They are going to want all of them. I'm telling you, these are a hit with students. So basically what will happen is I'll say, hey, I'm your host. Go ahead and solve this problem on your own. And students will solve the problem either on their own or maybe you want them working in pairs or groups in your class. Then they will press play and resume the video as 4 other characters solve this same problem right here. Now the thing is, 3 of those characters are going to make a mistake that students will commonly make. And notice this kind of looks like one inside of the document that we just used to break down the standard. And one character will provide the correct answer and the correct reasoning behind it. So students really have to listen carefully. These characters are just me dressed up in silly costumes, silly accents, having fun with this. And then after they watch all of the characters, they'll fill out their detective report, analyzing who they believe the most reasonable answer belongs to, and then analyzing the work of the other. So these are super fun. They're a big hit. So I'm telling you, once you go, you won't go back. Also, these are great to do towards the end of units after students have had some practice with them. I mean, you know your students best, but usually I would provide the video lessons first and then move on with these math misconception mystery videos later on. All right, so after that, if you have the gold plan, you have access to even more. So let's check it out. You can go back to your bronze video lessons and student notes at any time. You can go to your silver resources where you have the extra practice. You have the math mission and you have the math misconception mystery episode there. Now, if you're a gold member, you also have access to this mini assessment. Every standard has a mini assessment with a variety of question types strategically aligned to the standard that we're talking about. Okay, boom, lots of different types. So just to see, your county might already provide you with mini assessments and you can just use those as extra practice. They don't even say mini assessment, they just say show what you know. So however you want to roll these out is cool. There's an answer key right here. You also have these episodes of breaking down the best right here with all of your resources for every standard if you are a gold member. So that's one of the perks there. Now these episodes, these breaking down the best videos that are for teachers are also available on YouTube. You just get them ad-free here. Usually if you went for the gold package, it's because you wanted access to McCarthy Math 155, which is a daily math intervention aligned to the Common Core standards. Now I know it says Common Core, but just keep in mind that there are a lot of skills that do trickle over into the BEST standards. We just have to be careful for some of them about how we're rolling them out, right? So for instance, let's go here. The 155, by the way, it stands for 155 video lessons for each grade. So when we go to 3rd grade, you'll see that maybe you have students that are struggling with place value or adding and subtracting. Well, you have 13 video lessons, 16 video lessons, 13 more video lessons available to you that you can just push out to your students to help them. 2-step word problems, 10 video lessons. But we're talking about fractions, so let's scroll down there. Unit 8 with fractions. Got an introduction to fractions, modeling fractions. These aren't just unit fractions, but fractions in general. Just if we I'm sure for this one, there's a unit fraction right there, and I'm sure I highlighted it in the video saying that is a unit fraction because it has a 1 in the numerator. These are a little bit different. For instance, they don't include sets, where the B.E.S.T standards do include sets. We focus more on the number line and area model, but still, if you need extra practice, here you go. Fractions greater than 1. There's multiple episodes there. Okay, and then we get into comparing fractions in a little bit. There's just so much there. Okay, so take a look at that. See if it works for you. Lots and lots there with the McCarthy Math 1.5.5 for you to use to help students to build their confidence. So I think that's it. I hope that the information in this episode was helpful to you, that now you understand the standard, you've seen it in action, and you know what you have access to with whatever membership you have. Before we go, let me remind you that what you choose to wake up and do every day with your life, it really does matter. Thank you so much for being a leader for your students, for showcasing what your best looks like to help students step into the best version of themselves too. I couldn't do what I do without you, so thank you for inviting me into your classroom. I really do appreciate that, and I know that you are busy, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. I'll just see you next time on the next Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episode, okay? Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye.